Good morning, beloved. As we're celebrating Advent season, most of the readings we'll have in the first reading will mostly be from Isaiah the prophet, and it's a really, really good practice to read through Isaiah on our own if we can, to get the full picture, again, the full exposure. And it's a lot longer than the book of Revelations, which we just went through, but you can still read the whole book, and maybe by reading 2 or 3 chapters a day, and by the end of Advent, you'll be done. Amazing. And, 3 chapters. I have to practice what I preach, though, too, So we're here we are in the book of Isaiah, and it kind of jumps around because it's focusing on certain themes of the Messiah. So we'll not necessarily go in order from the beginning to the end. Right now we're already in chapter 11, and it will be jumping around depending on some overarching themes of Advent and the coming of Christ that the church wants us to focus on. But what I'd like to just draw our attention to is what we touched on Sunday, and that is as we're preparing for the coming of Christ, especially the second coming of Christ, and Jesus gives us the supernatural signs of the times to watch for. And we mentioned the first one that Jesus talks about and that the Catechism re-emphasizes and teaches is that sign of deception from and corruption from within the church and from within the world and a worldwide. And so we talked about how do we recognize this deception, and especially when it comes to governments or institutions or just big entities, we're looking to see they're going to try to basically take the place of the Messiah. And so they will try to do what God promises that the Messiah will do, or that what God promises to bring into the world through the Messiah. And so we see some of that in Isaiah, because Isaiah is constantly telling us about the Messiah, the titles of the Messiah, and the dreams that God wants to accomplish through the Messiah. And so we can always look at that. Okay, here's what God wants to do. And then we can see, okay, so yeah, that's what the devil is going to want to imitate or fake in order to, there's got Christ and Antichrist. But the Antichrist, or spirit of the Antichrist, does not always come to us or reveal itself to us by being against Christ, but so much more often when it comes to this deception, not being against Christ, but taking the place of Christ. And so that's where we're looking for that deception. That's what we want to know. Who is Jesus, and what are his titles? What is it that God promises to bring to us and to the world through the Messiah, through Jesus? Because the Antichrist spirit, and if the Antichrist spirit takes flesh, it will not just come against or attack Christ, but try to replace Christ, take the place of Christ. So that's how we can recognize. So here, the first half of the reading is all about Jesus. We know these are some of his titles. A shoot shall sprout from the stump of Jesse. Jesus is the shoot from the stump of Jesse. One of his titles to show that he comes in that line of King David. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Jesus in the form of a dove and remained on him, rested on him. And we know this Spirit is Spirit of wisdom and understanding, Spirit of counsel. So these are other titles that Jesus will get later on from Isaiah. Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace, Mighty God. So this first half basically tells us, here's the Messiah, and the second half, and here's what God wants to do through the Messiah. So here's where we can look to recognize the spirit of deception, what the spirit of deception will try to do. Then the wolf shall be a guest of the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf and the young lion shall browse together with a little child to guide them. The cow and the bear shall be neighbors, their young shall rest together. The lion shall eat hay like the ox, and the baby shall play by the cobra's den, and the child shall lay his hand on the adder's lair. There shall be no more harm or ruin on my holy mountain. So one of the themes here we see is peace and security, and a certain harmony that brings a unity, a certain healing and harmony that brings a unity with all creation. No more opposition and fighting and destroying each other, but a unity and a harmony, this certain healing among creation that brings that harmony. Now God promises to do this through the Messiah. This is what the Messiah is going to bring. This is the justice, this is the results of the justice of God to bring about this peace, this security, this harmony, this healing in creation. There shall be no harm or ruin on my holy mountain. Why? Because we worked really hard with social justice action issues? Why? Because the government helped us do this? No, because the earth will be filled with the knowledge of God. So these things are to happen in a lasting way only when they're centered on and founded on a knowledge of God. There's no true lasting peace unless it's centered on God, centered on relationship with God, centered on Jesus. You can do other things to find momentary peace, but true lasting peace will never come without God, knowledge of God, relationship with Jesus Christ, centered on Christ. Without Christ, there's no peace because he's the Prince of Peace. So, basically, anytime we see somebody or some government or coalition of governments or authority promising to bring these things about without Christ or in the place of Christ, that's the Antichrist. That's that spirit of deception already at work among us. And so that's how we can recognize the supernatural signs of the times, the supernatural sign of deception. Is this already at work? And then how large a scale is this at work? Because that spirit of deception at work within the church and within the world will be on a large worldwide scale. Jesus says from place to place. That means all over, not just in one little locality. So again, we're going to see other themes, other things that Jesus promises, that God promises to bring about through his Messiah. But anytime we see somebody or something or some authority trying to do those same things, but without Christ, that's the spirit of the Antichrist. That's the spirit of deception already at work in the world. That is the first supernatural sign of the time that Jesus tells us to watch out for and to be ready, because that confirms he is near.